Well, thanks so much for hanging with me a little bit, Jonathan. I'm Jono with FaithWorks Marketing, and this is Jonathan Malm with a little bit of everything, man. Why don't you
Yeah.
give us the short version of who you are and what you do and what is life and all the things you got your hands in.
Yeah, I am an encourager. I am a person who loves helping people see clearly through all the mess, especially in ministry. The problem with Sunday morning coming every week is that it can very quickly become about like this one thing that happens every Sunday and it becomes a survival spiral and you don't see clearly. So I love through my projects helping people get ideas, getting encouraged, getting perspective on life. So I do some writing. Me and my writing partner, Jason Young, we have a couple of books called The Comeback Effect, The Volunteer Effect. The Comeback Effect is obviously hospitality related. Volunteer Effect, volunteer related, leading volunteers. And then we have a book coming out in July called Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright. And it's basically
Nice.
an anti-burnout book. So it's not like what to do if you burnt out. It's like, no, how do you not burn out in the first place, ideally,
Yeah,
right?
imagine
So
that.
that's the topic of that book. I'm really excited about that one. So I do that with my writing. I run a website called Sunday Social. We create social media graphics that churches can use. We create like 4 graphics a day that churches can grab from the library and post up on Instagram, Facebook, on Reels, all sorts of stuff. So get a chance to help churches with social media, with writing, and then I do some Instagram posts myself. Just some silly little videos that I've been starting to enjoy doing. So if you can follow me at Jonathan Malm on Instagram, you can see all my all the stuff that's that relatable stuff about working in a church. That's the type of content I create. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, which is how I found you, and I was like, oh, this dude, this guy gets it, and I said this to you before, like, yeah, what I love about your reels, it's like picket at church stuff, but not like mean. And
Yeah.
it's obvious you still love the church. You love the church, and that this is just shining a light on some of those unique things that, unless you're on church staff, you just don't get some of this stuff. It's a weird universe.
It's a little bubble.
It's definitely. So you mentioned, with the burnout, you're writing a book on avoiding burnout, and you mentioned being an encourager. So what kind of set you on the path to helping people avoid burnout? Why is that such a big deal to you? And you mentioned something that I resonated with too, the whole Sunday comes every week. Or as a youth pastor, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, it's already Wednesday again. I've got youth group again, or on Tuesdays. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to teach about tomorrow night? And even though I should have been prepared like a week in advance, confession, I wasn't. And so, yeah, man, it gets a little stressful, and you can really quickly start dreading those. I think Andy Stanley said it's like when he was talking about a sermon, he mentioned, he's like, imagine having a 20-page term paper due every week, and it's never going to end. And it's like, yeah, sometimes it felt like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's the problem with ministry is it's so hard to have perspective on it. And I see so many people in ministry that are this way, where it's about, your planning center roster. If you're leading volunteers, like I have 20 people and all I'm seeing all week is all the people who haven't confirmed. And I'm so laser focused on surviving this Sunday. And consequently, it can keep you from making decisions that will help you a year down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. You get so laser focused on the tree in front of you that you miss the forest. And I mean, it's cool. I've met a few people in ministry that have been able to, see the forest through the trees. But that's the rare situation, not the rule. Normally, it's people who are just so focused on this one thing in front of them, surviving that, and then you find yourself in the exact same spiral. It's like that movie Groundhog Day, right? Where every week repeats itself because you didn't do anything to advance the ball long term. you just survived that play. Mixing metaphors, talking about Groundhog Day and then football and all that, but you know what I'm saying.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. So does this go back to some church staff experience you had?
Yeah, I
How
mean,
does all
I've
that?
grown up. I've grown up in church, in the church. My dad planted a church whenever I was 6 years old. It was so Kerrville, Texas, is a small town in Texas. This was a suburb out of Kerrville, Texas. So it was tiny country. Um, at the height of our church, we had 100 people. Um, I remember there was one Sunday where a deer got hit in the middle of the service out on the highway, and a couple of guys got up, grabbed the guns from their trucks, and put the deer out of its misery, just to be good people, and that's the
It's their
type of
little
people we
ministry
reach.
that morning.
Yeah, it was a very interesting situation. So that's where I grew up. Then we went to Guatemala, where we were missionaries. So lived there for 6 years. So I've had a chance to small churches in the U.S., small churches in Guatemala, and villages in Guatemala, mega churches in Guatemala, mega churches in the U.S., everywhere in between. We came back. Then my dad, when I was in college, the church where he and my mom, my wife, my mom met. They'd just gone through a massive church split. There was a lawsuit pending against the old pastor. They'd bought a property to build a building, but obviously there were only 75 people now in the church, and
Yeah.
this $1 million property that they couldn't afford. That's where I learned ministry, where I started working at a church. I went to college, then came on staff there, and yeah, I got a chance to see the ugly, the good, the bad, the ugly, and as a pastor's kid, as a missionary kid, and somehow survived. But I have a heart for people in ministry because I've seen what it can do to families. I've seen what it can do to people. I want to help as many people as possible survive ministry, and not end it hating God and hating the church, right? I want people to love God, love the church, love their families, and love ministry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Because there's a lot of guys and yeah, they're not just burning out. I mean, they're like
Blaze of glory burning out.
blazing,
Yeah.
flaming out. And yeah, I mean, at best, it just left extremely cynical towards the church, and sometimes that gets transferred over to God, and their
Oh yeah,
relationship with God
often.
suffers if it survives. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so
usually it comes from this weird place. I mean, I found this whenever I was in ministry is I quickly found my time with God became prep for my job. And so it was no longer time with God, it was research for my job. So I would read a verse and I'm like, ooh, that would make a great, worship intro, or that would make a great social media post, or I needed to
yeah,
give that to my dad or to the pastor, another pastor I was working with, to use for his message. It very quickly became not about me and God, but about my job and
yeah,
the Bible, and not even me or God involved.
yeah, yeah, totally identify with that. It's especially. I don't know. Well, not especially, but just as a youth pastor coming up with a message every week, or as a pastor coming up with a
Hmm.
message every week, it's hard not to. Well, one, hard not to just go into the Bible just thinking, okay, what's going to preach? I need something to use. But then on the flip side, thinking, well, I need to spend some time in the Word. But I did
Yeah.
because I was planning for that sermon, so that was plenty. That was good. I
Yeah. And
never.
there's like a dopamine charge from ministry, unfortunately, where leading worship, speaking, if I do well, I get rewarded. If I do poorly, I don't get rewarded. It's almost like gambling, right? Where those lights and sounds are meant to trigger those dopamine receptors.
Yeah,
Whenever people are hanging on our every word, or whenever they have their hands raised, or like it can very quickly give us this feeling that we crave. It's almost like on social media. Anytime I have a video that goes viral, it's the best feeling in the world. All those notifications popping in. And
yeah,
then when that goes away, it's devastating. And I'm scrambling to try to get that dopamine back. I'm scrambling to try to get that feeling back of relevance or value or whatever. And that can happen a lot in ministry too. So that's part of why we do it, is because we're so desperate to get that moment of, man, the youth are hanging on my every word, everyone in the congregation is just with me and we're worshiping, and I backed away from the mic and they were screaming loud and I could hear them singing, like all those, it feels so good. It's so great,
Yeah.
but we can chase that high instead of chasing the spirit or whatever, whatever, however spiritual you want to make it, of chasing
Yeah.
the actual, what are we actually trying to accomplish? We're doing ministry. It's not about us, but it becomes about us
Right.
very easily.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you agree? Like, because I've said this like carefully before, and but I've thought a lot about it. I think being a pastor or being on a church staff in a position, in a role that requires you to be on stage regularly, worship, student ministry, or lead pastor, or teaching pastor, I, I think that's as close to being a celebrity as you can get, and experience just a little bit, a sliver of what a celebrity would experience, um, without becoming a celebrity. Like, you deal with
Yeah.
you deal with a lot of people knowing your name that you don't know their name. You deal with
Yeah.
getting to get up in front of a crowd. Um, and I wasn't the deepest teacher, but I could crack jokes, and so if you're somebody who loves to make people laugh and people laugh at your jokes on stage, that's that dopamine shot. And
Yeah.
then there's the going in the grocery store and getting recognized, and you don't recognize them, but there's always a compliment, and all that stuff. And it's like, I mean, in my younger days, that was not good for my
Yeah.
ego. It was not good for my humility. As I got older, I still think it probably still wasn't good for me. But I did mellow out and just didn't need it as much. But and so I always felt like, well, there's this danger if you don't have your stuff together, that could really mess you up in a lot of different ways and cause you to stumble in a lot of different ways. And I wonder if some of that you have to be careful. But does it have the potential to attract someone who needs that level of attention and who is seeking that out,
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can. I think, most people. I mean, I think this is the case with a lot of things. Is you get into it with good intentions. Well, I'd say half and half. You have people who've seen the celebrity pastor, like, oh, I want to get that. I want to be famous. I want to, And then you have people who are like, I had a pastor that spoke into my life, and they impressed me so much, and I want to be able to do that for other people. But then you get popular because you're a good speaker or because you're really good at what you do, and people flock around you. And then in our celebrity culture, we lift up these people that are talented, and we turn them into celebrities. That whole celebrity pastor thing, it's not necessarily something people are looking for. There are some people, but a lot of times it's just inevitable that people know your name, people recognize you, you have a successful ministry, and people are going to turn you into celebrity. So yeah, it's tough. It's really difficult. And unless
what
you
would your
have,
encouragement be to that guy who's not a celebrity pastor? He's not at that level. He's pastoring a church of 500, 600,000 people.
I'd say that's still a celebrity.
Yeah. I mean, that's a local celebrity. You're going to get recognized. There's going to be people who want your attention and who are trying to get to you and want to spend time with you. And what's your encouragement to that guy?
One of the best things is to not make that your whole identity, which is really hard in ministry, but have a group of friends that don't know who you are, meaning they don't care. Like, meaning hang out with people that probably aren't Christian, really.
Yeah.
So on my Instagram, I have, 20,000 followers. I'm on podcasts like this. And, if you look up my name, or if you're in the church space, like, oh, you maybe know Jonathan Malm. But then nobody at my church knows that, like, I'm anything at all. Like, they just know me as Jonathan Malm, the person, right? And so I get that benefit of having a community of people that they don't care. They don't think I'm that cool. I mean, they like me for who I am, but they don't necessarily think that I'm like influential to them. And I'd say that's really important to have that in your life. Have a group of people that, man, they don't care. Like, they don't care that you have 500 people who listen to you every Sunday, or that you talk to God, or whatever you're going to call the things that these perspectives people have of pastors. And that's hard to find that community, but, go skateboarding. Like, my pastor does this. He goes to coffee shops or he goes to shows. He goes to, rock shows, and he goes
Yeah.
skateboarding, and he has these communities of people that they don't care he's a pastor. Like, he
Yeah.
pastors them while he's there. That's also a ministry for them, but they also don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I think one of the things that sticks out for me is with my wife. I wouldn't say giving her permission. That's a terrible way to say it, but letting her know, hey, I'm not going to pout and be a turd if you point out something that you think is me lacking humility in some areas,
Yeah.
like,
no, that is giving
she
permission.
did that.
It's the same way,
and it was
it's the same
great.
way David did it with investigate my heart, God, right? Or search me, oh God, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's that same thing. Like, I'm giving you permission to call out the stuff you see in me that's not honoring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
That was huge for me. That was
Kids
a big
too. Kids, let your kids do it too. So my dad, who was a pastor, there were a few key moments in my life that he did that for us. And I think that I can contribute that partially to me surviving ministry was, we called out some things like, hey, you have some anger issues and this is how it manifests. And he sat us down and said, tell me about it. I want to get better. So understanding that his role was we didn't care that he's a pastor. Like, that's a perfect example of it.
Yeah.
And he's not, obviously he's our leader, but he also submitted to us. That's the Christian life, right? You mutually submit to one another. Even if you're in a position of power, you still submit to one another. So yeah, I think you can definitely use our families for that as well.
Yeah. And go serve in children's ministry. If you need our children's pastor's out on maternity leave, and I'm leading Wednesday nights for her for like 7 weeks. And
Wow.
so 2 weeks ago was the first week. And so I showed up in there, and the first thing out of my mouth was like, all right, guys, well, Miss Jen, she's having her baby, so I'm going to be with you guys for the next 7 weeks. All right. And a couple kids were like, all right, cool. My son's in there. He's like, yeah. This one girl goes, oh. And then she saw me, and she was like, oh no, it's good. It's good. It's good. I was like, no, that was so genuine. And you couldn't even stop yourself. That's how sad you are that I'm leading this. And so that was humbling. Like, these kids don't care. They will tell you that your shoes look dumb and that you're not funny. And so if you're a pastor struggling with, you feel like you got a little ego that may need tamping down, just go serve one Sunday in the children's ministry. They will fix it.
I would say youth for some people is that same way. Like, you're as youth pastor, but man, youth can cut you to your core. They can say things that will just destroy you.
Yeah.
This is supposedly the no bullying generation, and they're the worst bullies I've ever seen.
I may or may not have cried in my car on the way home from youth. It could have happened. So
come and get me, Mom. They're being mean to me.
I'm not going back. We're going to find a new. So speaking of those types of things, one of my favorite things to hear from guys, and one of my favorite things to sit around and share, is just like some of the crazy church stuff that's happened to us that you just can't happen anywhere else. I told a story of there was a girl, we did a ski trip. First year I was a youth pastor. I was 19. They let me take a group of like 10 kids to West Virginia from Atlanta. She wasn't even my fiance at the time. She was my girlfriend, and she's now my wife. But I was like a year older than the seniors in the youth group. And we went to West Virginia. Well, one of the girls, these two girls were fighting over a guy. And one of the girls decided that she wasn't getting enough attention from the guy. And so in order to get some more attention, she concocted this story. She comes in night 2 of the ski trip telling us that she had just got off the phone with her mom, and her dad had been hit by a drunk driver and was in a coma, and we needed to get home. So we prayed with her. That next morning, we left the ski retreat 2 days early. The whole way home, the guy that she had a crush on has got his arms wrapped around her and just holding her. And then we finally make it back to the parking lot of the church. And guess who pulls in because they were on their way to dinner and saw that we were back early? Her dad, who was supposed to be in a coma. She had made the whole thing up, man. The whole thing. And this was like 1999. So she called the entire youth group, said, hey, guys, I don't know what happened. And her story was that she thinks that the lines, she was on a payphone, the lines must have got crossed up. And I was talking to someone else's mom, and somewhere out there, there's a daughter who doesn't know that her dad's been in a wreck.
Gosh.
That was like month 4 of youth ministry. And I almost quit. After that. And it only got better from there. So anyway, have you got any of those, like, just, this is crazy,
People being crazy?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think my stories are more not so much on like people being crazy. It's just like we were in this. There was this season of the church where like creativity was everything, and we have to be creative. Thank you, Ed Young, probably for creating that culture with the C3 movement, right? And so our church, we were, the building was built in the 70s, and we were trying to figure out how can we be relevant, how can we be creative, and we just did such dumb things. Like in hindsight, like, I mean, I'm glad we did them because they were great experiments. But like, one time we did, this was a lot of times led by me because I was the young kid on staff and I had my dad's ear because I was his son. But one time we did, my dad wanted to do a biblical survey. So just, 3 weeks, we just talk about the Bible and its place in history and kind of chronologically how the story unfolds. And it's just like an overview of the Bible. And I was like, oh, that's boring. We got to be relevant. We got to be creative. And so I suggested this idea. We called it the history of the world. And we basically interluded skits in between these, the segments of the Bible. And so it was like these Monty Python type skits. We had, a host. My dad came out in a tux and we had a spotlight on him. And then, we would do these like silly little skits in between to like illustrate the different seasons, the different eras of the Bible. And it was a really bad idea. Very memorable, but for the wrong reason. Everyone probably remembers the skits and the craziness more than anything from the Bible. So that was a bad idea. Another time it was Easter and we wanted to like do this really cool spring thing. This one fortunately wasn't my idea, but a lady on our staff was like, what we should do? We should put real grass on the stage, like real grass on the stage to make it really springy. And so we did that. And it was ridiculous because we had to like, our maintenance guy had to like water the grass during the week on our stage, carpeted stage. So we had like, we put down like, the tarps and everything to keep it safe. But by the end of the 4th week, I was walking on mud. I would come out to lead worship and I'm like sloshing through mud, like, and then like leading. And of course I'm, like rocking out and like for 3 services and I'm stomping in the same spot. So the grass is getting destroyed. It's really funny looking back on it, but it was such a bad idea.
I've got a friend who was a worship pastor. He is a worship pastor, and at one of the churches he served at for their Christmas Eve services, him and his creative team, and he was kind of in that environment too. Like, where it's just like, let's just push it, whatever it takes,
the envelope,
as creative as possible, whatever it takes. And they decided that at each of their like 6 Christmas Eve services, they were going to do a drawing, and of kids, you put your kid's name in the drawing, and they bought puppies and we're going to have the puppies, and a kid at every Christmas Eve service was going to win a puppy. And I watched it. I saw the Facebook post go out, and I sat on my couch for an hour and just watched it explode. And what I thought was coming was going to be the church people swarming, saying, you're taking the focus off.
Oh, no.
And I'm thinking,
I can already see where this is going, though.
I'm thinking as a parent, you're not giving my kid, if my kid wins that puppy, we're not taking it. Like, I'm not taking another dog. But no, none of that. That was crickets. But every animal rights activist, every PETA pro-animal person just lost their mind. How do you know it's going to go to a family that's going to take care of it? Are you going to get the shots? I mean, just everything. And needless to say, no puppies were given away that year. But man, the puppy people, they I love hearing him tell that story because he thought it was a great idea.
I love that. I mean, I love those. Like, there was another time I think gas was starting to get expensive, and we're like, what if we like, if you try out church for the first time, we'll give you a gas card. And so I was like, what if we do like our church gives you gas? We can do an ad campaign. Like, and it was like the joke. It was a joke. I like totally understood that was what it sounded, right? But I was like, ooh, this will be so funny, and like that one wasn't approved. But like those ideas that you're like, ooh, this is amazing, because you get in that bubble and
Yeah.
you forget that the real world exists. It's funny.
We did gas buy downs where we would go to the gas station and we got them to like, the church would pay like $1 per gallon towards your gas. And,
That's fun.
It was cool, but dude, we didn't prepare for the traffic. We didn't prepare. We didn't have police officers for the traffic that's going to be lined up a mile down the road.
Yeah.
And we didn't prepare for people, to break up fights among people who were trying to get to the pump. So that was a little scary.
Yeah.
But
yeah, those great ideas. Sometimes we need someone on our team who just thinks rationally.
Somebody, yeah, we need a not church staff member to be in on some of these discussions. Like, guys.
Yeah. I always also say that it's important to have like someone with a middle schooler's mind to help the pastor prepare their message. Just to see, those things that he's going to say or she's going to say that might, that has a different meaning nowadays than what you think it does.
Yeah. Yes. 100% need a middle school boy in there. Like, let's just bounce this off of him. That's good.
Bounce this off Timmy. What do you think? If he chuckles, you got a problem. You got to work on something.
Does any of these words mean anything sexual in 2023?
Or all the pastors, who are, they heard the term Netflix and chill and didn't realize that meant like coming over for a hookup. Like, people still use that incorrectly. Yeah.
Yes. So shifting gears a little bit to social media, online presence. What do you think churches, like if they just could give their online presence, their social media, one big booster shot? Like what would you say that is?
Yeah. I mean, one of the best things that I found for content that I create is that's me moment. Like, I relate to that. We so often focus on, we have to get people to come to our church. We have to get people to come to this event, or, we have a Bible verse that we want to share. But one of the best things you can do is think through your daily experience, your life. So think through, when I'm reading this Bible verse, what am I thinking? Or whenever I'm thinking about this topic, what's my experience with it? And then make content that has that, like, oh, they understand me, they get me, because that's what works on social media right now. To be honest, not necessarily funny. My videos, like, people laugh at them a lot, and they're not that funny, to be honest, but they're relatable. Yeah. And that's one of the best things we can do on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Reels, on Facebook, is that, like, I have felt that. I've been there. I feel that pain. We don't need to necessarily solve the problem in our post. We just need to touch on that pain point. And then in our caption, we can give them hope. So, hey, that's when we start inviting the church, or we say, hey, read this verse, or that's when we say, do this, do that. If you relate to this post, here's my help for you. And changing your perspective to the things you post to that perspective is going to really increase your effectiveness on social media.
That's good. That's really good.
Well, thank you.
I think that when I have the conversations with churches, and we help a lot of churches with their social media, it hasn't dawned on them that for the most part, 10% of the people that follow their page are seeing their posts.
Yeah,
and that Facebook, if you're lucky, and that Facebook really stifles the reach of your posts, and so that helps them shift, because I think most of them just think of kind of like it's just outbound marketing. Let's just throw it out there so that our people see it. And once they get in their head, like, oh, well, not many people are seeing this unless it gets shared and really grabs people, And look, your graphic about your whatever, your event that you're doing, that is a cool event, but it's not really stopping people from scrolling, and it's not engaging, and they're not sharing it. So if you can get out of the mindset that this is just a big advertising platform, and really, try to put stuff that's out there that's relatable and people are going to really appreciate, then things get a lot better.
Yeah, you don't have to beat the algorithm. And I think that's a lot of times, when you're on Facebook groups, these church communications Facebook groups, they're always talking about like, what posts have you created lately that beat the system, or that worked, that got, and really just they're thinking like, what kind of special Tabasco can I put on this that like will suddenly make it work? And there's no easy way to do it. Like the way you do it is you create content that people love, and then it gets shared, or, people spend 10 minutes engaging with it, and then Instagram says, oh, this must be good quality content because people are actually commenting, liking it, sharing it, looking through all the things, rewatching the video. That's all. The algorithm is there to help you find good quality content. Like that's like they want to know, is this post good or is this post not good? If the post is good, they're going to keep boosting it out to people. So
and the
algorithm, good quality content, it's going to get seen.
Exactly. The algorithm's just looking for those signals. That's
it's your friend.
It's looking for signals, and the signals are whatever tells the algorithm that people like it. Yeah. They like it, share it.
Yeah, it's not something you have to fight against. It's something that you can work with, and it's actually a great tool for you.
Yeah, and if if it doesn't do well, it's not the algorithm's fault. It's that it just people didn't like it. So try again.
Yeah, and the truth is, and a lot of times too, people think that the algorithm is somehow hiding Christian content. It's not. But, your post about, whatever that event, that men's breakfast, it's not because it's Christian content that it's hiding. Just nobody cares to share the men's breakfast thing. No one's that excited about it.
Yeah, your stock photo of a plate of pancakes that says men's breakfast is not that engaging. I mean,
not compelling.
So what did you expect? But that's why, clients, a lot of our clients, and we have clients that aren't churches, but like even with nonprofits, some of the faith-based nonprofits we work with, I tell them up front, look, we can use some really polished stuff, and we'll do good looking videos, and we'll really, Photoshop this and make it look awesome. And then they'll take their staff to lunch and do some crappy picture in a Mexican restaurant with an iPhone 7, and it blows up, and everybody loves it and comments and likes it. And then the post that we did that we spent 3 hours on gets 5 likes and no comments.
Yeah.
And it's just like, because people like just real stuff. They relate to sitting there eating in a Mexican restaurant. They like seeing you. They like seeing real faces. So
there's even a phenomenon on TikTok and Instagram where if a video is too high quality, people skip it, because our current culture's brain is trained to think high quality equals ad.
Yeah.
Low quality equals my friend made it, so I want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, we're running a lot of Facebook ads for churches with a Check Out Our Church campaign where, it's basically a lead ad. But the video that we get the pastor to shoot for it, we say, hold up your phone outside of your church. And we don't care if you shake. We don't care, but what we don't want is you to go into the auditorium,
the studio,
fancy camera with a studio. We'll get the lights perfect behind you. No, we want it to look like you just grabbed your phone and this was just spur of the moment, because people will actually watch that. And, we see for about every $20 per month that a church will spend, if we do this right, they'll see one family sign up to attend a service on Sunday. So, with this $600 budget, we're seeing 30 families a month sign up to attend a service, and then about a 60% show up rate. So,
that's way better than a billboard where you're spending $1,000 and you have no way of tracking whether or not people are coming. Maybe 2 families came.
Maybe it worked.
Yeah, way better value.
Yeah, for sure. And we can target people, and not just people who are driving past the billboard on their way to work and they live an hour from your church. So Facebook ads can definitely definitely reach some people. The cool thing about the Facebook ads though is like they don't reach church people.
Well, that's the number one thing people say they hate about Facebook ads is that you can't target Christians anymore. I'm like, you don't want to target Christians. You Christians are already going to another church.
Exactly. And if a Christian's looking for a new church, they're going to the church that their friend at another church invites them to. So the
Yeah.
people who respond to our ads that we're running, it's the guy who is drunk on his couch on Saturday night. His wife left him, and he's scrolling through and sees this pastor saying, "Hey, we'd love to see you tomorrow at church." And in his mind, and it very well may be, this was the Lord talking to him saying, "You need to come to church tomorrow." And
yeah, it's perfect timing.
I've seen those guys show up. And and so, if a church is going to start reaching people with Facebook, and a lot of churches really are and doing it right, and they're spending some money on it, but you've got to be ready for people who need some ministry, because this is not going to attract a bunch of church people.
Yeah,
they're getting invited in person. They don't need a Facebook ad. So
true that.
So cool. So what is like one idea that you have for churches that you think would just be awesome, but you don't see a whole lot of people doing it, but you think if they would incorporate this or do this thing or tweak this, is there something that you would just love to see more churches doing? Doesn't have to necessarily be online, but just what is the thing?
Yeah, one thing that I was talking to a group of people, executive pastors last week, and I was like, it'd be really cool. And I've seen some churches do this, very few, is turn your space into a co-working space during the week. I think that'd be so cool if more churches did that, because the fun thing about co-working spaces is they're just a great environment. You get a lot of different people from different backgrounds in a space. There's kind of this creative energy that happens. Churches are not being used during the week. The buildings largely are just sitting vacant during the week. What if you invite people from the community? You could even make a little bit of money on the side from it. You get the creators, you get the entrepreneurs, you get the movers and shakers in your community, give them a space to work from. I think that'd be pretty cool. I would love to see that more. And, then have your staff working amongst them, and let that also be an opportunity for ministry where you can, during those coffee and water cooler breaks, you can actually talk about what you're working on at the church.
That's very cool. Yeah, because
yeah,
I mean, tons of churches around here or everywhere have super nice lobbies and super nice coffee shop or cafe or something. That would be awesome to open that up. I would go.
Yeah, I would love that. There's an organization here in San Antonio where I live that helps churches do that. Mostly churches that are like on the failing side, like they have this building and they're trying to figure out how they can keep it because no one attends anymore, and they're like, we need to make money. So, but I'm like, man, you don't have to get to that level. It could actually be a great opportunity for ministry during the week.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. I like that.
I agree. Cool. I would love to see more churches do that. I would totally work at a church that did that.
Yeah, I would too, man. I mean, I like working from home, but I also like having somewhere to go.
Yeah, for sure.
And co-working spaces are kind of expensive. So, if there was
and you don't have to make them, like there's a co-working space in town that really focuses on entrepreneurs, and it's $50 a month. And like, yeah, I would get 4 different memberships of $50 a month somewhere just to have different places to work. And $50 a month, if you have, 20 people signed up for that, that's $1,000 a month. That just for keeping your place open.
Well, and there was a time before I was working from home, I was working from a co-working space, and I've got people that were at the co-working space that I do projects with now. I've got clients that were working at the co-working space. The guy that sat beside me was an IT guy, and he just sent me another website for another church like 2 weeks ago. So he's sent 2 website jobs my way. So nice. the networking that happens too in a co-working space would be, that's a huge opportunity for a church.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you're struggling with like ProPresenter volunteers or go talk to the guy on the Mac, get to know him well. He might be
indeed. Yeah, our social media people, because you get a lot of influencers, a lot of content creators would be using your space primarily. So, and you can justify having a camera set up for the people who are working there, but then also you can use it for your church. Yeah, it's so many opportunities that I think churches could take advantage of.
You should write a book about that, man, or a pamphlet.
Maybe that's a few down the. I have a lot of some priorities I have to get through first.
Gotcha. Cool, man. Well, dude, thank you so much. This has been awesome, and I really appreciate you. Make sure you follow Jonathan on social media and check out sundaysocial.tv. Some really good stuff on there. So, and I appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.